welcome back to all of you who have been joining us from the beginning of this journey, this training program in January. And for anyone who may be joining us live for the first time, a very warm welcome to all of you. I am Teresa Blumenstein, and I am one of the global coordinators of the Justice Coalition of Religious. And I have the privilege of accompanying all of you as we prepare together to participate as fully and as impactfully as we can in this year's UN conference for the review of progress toward achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So those who have been either joining us live or who have followed the recordings and the slides know that after our second call in February, you were given quite a few tasks to attempt during these months of February, March, and April. And so today, much of our time together will be dedicated to just checking in with one another and sharing our progress in attempting those various tasks. And so more specifically, we will hear from one another about the experiences that we have had thus far in attempting to make contact with a civil society network that is monitoring SDG progress in your own country. We will hear from one another about your attempt to join the VNR or ENV or RNV, depending on your language, but the team that will respond directly to your government's progress report on the SDGs during this year's forum. And then for those who are from the Asia Pacific region, if we have any of you with us today, you are the only region that have already had your regional forum on sustainable development. So if we have anyone from the Asia Pacific region with us today, you will also have an opportunity to share whatever your reflections may be from any small or large portion of that forum that you are able to follow or view afterward. So it'll be checking in on those three things, and then we'll have two new things to offer a little input to grow upon, which will be that we will look at how you can find and reflect on national SDG progress reports that were submitted by civil society in your country from previous fora, from previous sessions of the HLPF. And we will also begin to think more concretely about how each of you would like to contribute to this series of informational sessions that we host at the end of this program, which we call the JCoR SDG Lab. And that will be happening at the end of July, sort of as a cap or a final presentation to show as an outcome from your participation in this whole experience. So that is our plan. And before we get into all of that great discussion, we will begin, as we usually do, with a prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, we are your beloved. Even in our unfinished state, you take delight in what we are and in what we will become. Help us to claim for our own your gentle leadership in our lives. Help us to know you are always hoping for more for us and from us, for our nations and from our nations, for our planet and from our planet. Give us the strength and peace of heart to be filled with your power. Give us the courage to use that power to establish justice. And give us faith in resurrection so that we may be patient and persistent in our journey toward your reign. Amen. Okay, so getting back to that first part of our agenda, which is to check in on several different tasks or activities that you may have attempted since we last met in February. We'll be asking, have you had any success in attempting to make contact with the civil society networks that are monitoring progress toward the SDGs in your country? Then we'll check in to find out if anyone has successfully joined one of the teams that will craft an official response from civil society to their government's voluntary national review. We have folks with us from the Asia Pacific region. We'll invite them to share any reflections they have on that regional forum for sustainable development. And then we'll introduce 2 new pieces of information about how to reflect on national SDG progress reports that were submitted by civil society in your country for previous sessions of the HLPF. And finally, begin to ask ourselves on which of the priority SDGs for this year's forum does each one of us feel called to focus during the SDG Lab in which each of us is invited to speak. So let's take those one by one. The first item is making contact with civil society networks who are monitoring progress toward the SDGs in our respective nations. So to help us recall, we offered these starting points, these links during our last call together. I had gathered the names and websites of many different networks of civil society from all of your countries or your regions in some cases. And you were invited to attempt to make contact with them to find out whether they were producing any kind of statement or participating in any way in the review of SDG progress happening for their country this year. And I recommended a few specific details that you could include in that outreach to the networks from your own country. Beginning, of course, with simply introducing yourself with your name or congregation, perhaps the SDGs on which you work most directly through your own ministry, and where in the country you are in ministry. I also recommended that you ask the representatives of the network if they are preparing a report to supplement the government's report to this year's forum. And then if they are preparing a report, to ask if there's any way that you would be able to submit ideas or become involved in some way in the development of that report. And so now the question that I put to all of you is, how is this process going for you? Have you had any success making contact with any of these networks? Have you perhaps found alternative networks that are operating in your country that I did not even include in my sort of directory of networks? Have you discovered that any of the networks are no longer operational, which may be the case for some of them? We would love to hear about any success or challenge that you may have encountered in attempting to make this contact with a network in your country. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can get a good look at all of you. And I'd like to invite you, if you have any update to share, whether positive or challenging, if you have any update to share about your attempt to make contact with a network in your country, we would love to hear from you. So if you're interested in speaking, please just raise your hand, which you can do either if your camera is on, just raising your actual hand was perfect. Otherwise, you can also use the raise hand button, which you can find, usually it is nested kind of underneath the reactions button, which may have a heart on it, or it may be underneath that more button with the 3 dots as well. So you would look for more, then reactions, then raise hand. But if you do have a camera, turning that on and waving your hand the old-fashioned way is also perfect. And if everything else fails, you can always just unmute and say, "I'd like to speak," and that will work too. So, is there anyone who has made an attempt to make contact with the network in their country who might like to share how that experience has gone for them? Yes, Conrad. Conrad Atanga, please. Atangana, my apologies. Oh, Conrad, we are not hearing you. You're not muted, but for some reason I'm not hearing you.
Ok. Maintenant?
Yes, go ahead.
Vous m'écoutez maintenant?
Can you hear me now?
Ok.
Yes.
Merci. Alors, je disais que je suis
Thank
le
you.
Père
When I
Conrad,
was saying
à Tangana
I
et
am
Somba
a
missionnaire
Father
Claretin, je fais
Conrad,
l'apostolat travaillant au Cameroun.
Clareton
Je
mission in Cameroon,
suis entré en contact avec
and
l'équipe via le
I
lien
got into
que vous
contact
nous avez présenté
with
en
the
leur
team you
adressant un
have
mail.
presented.
Et
I've
effectivement,
written
ils m'ont
an email,
répondu en
and
me
they
faisant savoir qu'un
actually
travail est en train
answered
d'être fait.
saying
Et
that they are currently
ce qui
working
m'a
on a
réjoui, c'est
report.
que
And
ils
I
m'ont
was
dit qu'ils allaient
happy
me
to see
contacter pour que
that
nous
they
puissions
were going to
avoir un
contact me
échange
so that
physique,
we may have an
ils
important
aimeraient connaître ce
exchange.
que la
So
congrégation
they
fait au
would
Cameroun
like to know what the
en
congregation is
relation
doing in
avec les
Cameroon.
ODD, comment est-ce que nous travaillons.
As for the
Donc, je suis
SDGs,
en train
what do we
d'attendre
do?
justement
So
leur
I'm just
invitation pour
waiting
mieux
for their
travailler avec eux. Mais
invitation
j'étais déjà content de
to
savoir
be
qu'ils
involved, but
s'intéressaient
at
à
least
ce
I was
que
very
les
happy to
missionnaires
see
clareteurs
that they
faisaient
are
au Cameroun.
interested in
Merci.
getting to know what the Declaration congregation is doing in Cameroon. Thank you.
Wow, that is great, Conrad. Very happy to hear that you had such a warm response from the network. And which network was it exactly that you were in communication with? I think because I think I had more than one on the page, so I'm not sure which one was responsive to you. Conrad, are you still, if you're still there and you can hear us, could you clarify which network in Cameroon you were communicating with? Okay, I think he may have gotten pulled into another task, so we will find the answer to that question later. But very good news to begin our sharing on this subject. Does anyone else have an experience to share? Whether it was successful and positive or whether you attempted and are still waiting for a response. Any experience to share? I'm not seeing any more hands. Are there any questions that anyone has about the task itself or about how to attempt to make contact with the network in your country? Is there anything about that that you could use some clarification to help you with that task? Yes, Anthony, please go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't really go through one of the names that you gave on the list, but I was kind of surprised. I don't know whether I can share that. I I went to a small town. I live in a big city, and I was surprised to find from an office of SDGs, which was supported by the local government, and they were working on this. And so I was able to make contact. I went into the office. I couldn't meet the person who was in charge, but to my surprise, that the local government had given them space and an office, and they had also very colorfully put up these SDG signs.
Wow, that is intriguing, especially for a small town. So what was your impression? Did you if you did, I think you were saying you actually went in and spoke to someone there. What was your impression of the work that they were doing. They seemed to be trying to engage members of the community. Were they attempting to gather data? What was your impression?
No, they were really seriously trying to kind of make the SDGs known to the local people there. They had the various programs, and they said, get in touch with us. Of course, it's a bit far. I can't go there, but I don't know if they have anything online. What surprised me was that, a small town kind of supporting this. I've not seen that. Whereas I live in a big city in Toronto, but the government doesn't support that kind of a thing. So an NGO formed just for SDGs was very interesting for me.
Very. And what town was this?
This is in Hamilton, Kitchener.
And that's Canada, yes? Very interesting. Well, that's good to hear. And especially in a year, if Canada is not reporting this year, it's even more impressive that they are continuously active. It's a good sign. Thank you for sharing, Anthony.
Welcome.
Anyone else have any question or experience that you would like to share? Yes, Ana Helena, please.
Eu estou no Brasil, morando numa cidade chamada Linhares.
I'm
Não
in
é uma cidade
Brazil.
muito
I live
grande,
in a town called
mas ela foi
Linhares in
tomada
the
pela
state of
lama
Espírito
de um
Santo,
desastre, de um crime
but we had
da Vale do
a,
Rio
a
Doce
crime
e que
from
trouxe
a
toda a lama,
mining company,
minérios
and
e
we
outras
had
coisas mais
mud
jogando
and
pelo rio e
mining
desembocando no
waste
nosso mar.
and
Então,
a lot of
diretamente
waste
ODS, eu
thrown in the
sinto
river.
que a
It
gente não
was
tem essa
a real
fala, mas
tragedy. So
explicitamente
we
nós trabalhamos com
feel
junto ao Ministério da
explicitly that
Mulher,
we
da
work with
Reforma
the
Agrária e dos movimentos
Ministry of
sociais.
Women,
Com as
Agro
mulheres, né,
Ministry, and
para
Social
restabelecer
Development,
a
with the
economia, a
Women Ministry
saúde
to
e a
reestablish
questão
the
do
economy,
feminicídio
the
que está
health,
muito alto no
and
Brasil e
also
muito
the what we call
dolorido. É muita dor o que a
feminicide,
gente
a
está
lot of
sentindo na questão do
women being
feminicídio.
killed
E
by their
trabalhamos, então,
partners,
em
by
favor
men,
da mulher na
and
questão da
also working in
alimentação
favor of women
saudável,
in
construindo
nutrition,
hortas
building
comunitárias,
community
quintais frutíferos e trabalhando
plantations,
a agroecologia.
fruit, and
Então,
also working hard on
indiretamente e diretamente, nós
agroecology.
trabalhamos com a mulher na
So
questão da economia,
directly
no
or
social e
indirectly,
ambiental,
we work with the
vendo
economy,
a questão da
social,
saúde
and
e também
environmental. Also
estabelecendo agora
with
através
health
do Ministério da
and
Educação
establishing with the
vários
education ministry several
espaços para
spaces
alfabetização de adultos.
to
Então, eu sinto que a
teach
bandeira do
adults to
Brasil é
read.
a luta
So
contra a
our
pobreza e a
idea
fome, a
is to fight
erradicação mesmo da
against
pobreza. Porque se você
poverty
dá
and
educação,
famine.
você está
Because
dando
if you educate a
envolvimento à
person,
mulher, dando
you are
suporte,
giving
sendo
support to women,
protagonista da
and
história
you are allowing the woman
e
to be the
erradicar de fato
protagonist of her
a
own
pobreza, né? E
story.
também
And it's also work to eradicate
estabelecendo outros
poverty
valores também que nós
and
precisamos.
also
Então,
other
eu acho que
values that we
indiretamente
need.
nós
So
estamos
I believe
trabalhando
that
com vários
indirectly we
ministérios
are
e eu
working with
quero
several
colocar justamente esses
ministries,
três que
and I
falam
want to
diretamente
highlight
das
these three
ODSs em
ministries
relação à
that talk
fome, à
straight
mulher e à alfabetização.
to the
E saúde,
items that
claro, né,
we need.
envolve tudo.
And
É
of
isso.
course, health is an umbrella for everything. That is what I have to say.
Thank you for sharing, Ana Helena. And I wonder, in your communication and collaboration with these ministries, women's education, agroecology, have you seen any of them reporting or gathering data in any way that is specific to monitoring the SDGs?
Quero falar para você que explicitamente eu não vi, mas
Not
a gente
explicitly,
percebe essa
but
grande
we
preocupação.
notice this
Inclusive,
concern
em
and
alguns
awareness.
espaços, a gente
In some
vê o cartaz
spaces,
das
we also
ODS.
see
Em
the
outros espaços,
SDG
com mulheres que
notifications
estão
or
trabalhando a questão da
banners,
saúde,
and
é
also
explicitado
when
a
women are
importância
working with
das
health,
ODS
the
como
importance
sustentação,
of the SDGs are
sustentabilidade
explicit.
do planeta,
For
da casa
example,
comum, envolvendo muito a
sustainability as our
movimentação
planet
das
as a
mulheres
house.
aqui é muito
And
grande,
this,
graças a Deus.
the
Há
movement
males que
and the
vêm para o bem,
involvement
parece
of
que
women here
acordou.
is very
E a questão
high.
do
It
feminicídio é
seems
uma
that
dor,
people have woken
é
up,
uma dor
and
imensa que
this
nós estamos sentindo aqui.
feminicide is a
Inclusive, o
huge pain
governo,
that we feel,
tem
and the
se
government
envolvido
itself
muito
has
e
involved
fazendo
itself in this,
leis para que, de fato, não digo
uh,
ameniza, mas que
making
resolva essa
laws
situação.
to
É uma dor
solve this
imensa.
situation. It's a big pain.
So
Obrigada pela oportunidade.
it sounds as though there are probably a lot of strong networks of civil society that are then addressing, in addition to the government ministries, there may be many networks of civil society who are organized around so many of these concerns, whether health or education or gender or the sustainability of towns and cities. And even if they're not kind of under the official banner or within the framework of the SDGs explicitly, that there are already good communities and connections where people are, in fact, collecting that vital information that can be channeled into a forum like the HLPF for the sake of offering strong examples of the status of SDG progress. Is that a correct understanding?
Correta, você foi muito fiel e percebe que isso sim. Eu acho que há uma conexão entre
Yes,
as
you are
várias
absolutely
secretarias,
correct. And I
e
think
com
that
esse olhar,
there
eu
is
acho que
this
está muito bem
connection,
conectado,
and I think
esses
the
valores e
connections,
essas
these values and
preocupações
these
também.
connections and these concerns are
Acho que
very
você
well
captou bem.
connected. You explained it very well.
Great. Well, see, now you have informal networks that are definitely not in my directory, but are perfect to complete the task and to do this work. So I encourage you to continue in your relationships with those and continue thinking about how those networks of which you are already a part, how you can draw on those insights and experiences and connect them to the contributions that you will make to this forum, because it sounds like you have a very rich source of insight and perspective to offer to a review of sustainable development in Brazil. So keep up those connections and please use them to help educate all of us as we proceed. Yes, Jean-Paul Malou, please go ahead.
Oui, bonjour à tout le monde. Je suis
Yes, hi
Jean-Paul Malou.
everybody.
Je suis en
My name
République
is Jean-Paul
démocratique du
Malou.
Congo,
I'm
missionnaire
in
claveteur.
Democratic Republic of Congo,
Et je suis aussi
Clariation
préfet d'Apostolat.
Congregation.
dans toutes ces dimensions,
And
différentes dimensions.
in each
Alors,
different
j'étais en
dimension,
contact,
it is possible to
pas
see an
direct
involvement.
avec
I was in contact, not direct contact, but
l'organisme ou bien,
with
mais
the
j'étais en contact avec un responsable, l'un des
with
responsables
one of the managers, one of
de
the
regroupement des ODD
heads of
et
the
qui s'appelle
SDG group,
RACOJ.
Mr.
RACOJ,
Rakoj.
c'est le réseau des associations
Sorry, Rakoj is the
congolaises des
network
jeunes.
of Congolese
Étant
associations
aussi
of
membre
youth,
de la pastorale
and it
juvénile
is
au sein de la
member of the
congrégation
youth pastoral
et travaillant dans
within the
une paroisse,
congregation,
j'ai été
working in the
intéressé
parishes, and I was
de cette
interested
plateforme
in
parce que
trying to understand
elle
the
est
movement
très
of this
active
platform because it is
sur
a
les
very
cibles
active
liées
platform
à l'emploi, surtout dans le domaine de
in
l'éducation,
challenges linked
de la
to
santé des
employment,
jeunes.
in education and
Et beaucoup
youth
de
health.
jeunes sont
Many young
désœuvrés
people,
malgré leur niveau d'études, malgré
despite
leur diplôme,
their
mais
level
ils
of
manquent d'emploi.
education
Et
and maybe
ces mouvements ou ces groupes
despite the fact of
cherchent
having
comment
a
faire sortir
degree,
le
they
jeune
have no job. So the
de la
importance is
dépendance
to
vers
understand
l'indépendance.
how to
Et ça fait partie du
empower
message
those
que nous
youth.
apportons aux
And this
jeunes
is
au
part
sein
of
de
the message
des
we
différents
bring to
apostolats.
youth,
Au lieu de
also in the
rester bras
different
croisés,
apostolates.
attendre qui
So
va
we
m'engager
cannot,
dans quelle
we need to
société,
act, we
mais
cannot do
l'objectif de ces
nothing.
groupes,
We
c'est
need
de
to help
faire
that
prendre
group
conscience aux jeunes
because
de se
they are
débrouiller.
trying to
Et
raise
nous, dans le
awareness
domaine d'apostolat,
among youth so
c'est
that
une
they may
piste aussi
find a
pour nous,
solution.
pour bien
And it is also
évangéliser
a
auprès
possible
de
path
ces
in
jeunes,
order to
au lieu
make
de rester
evangelization
des jeunes
to youth.
paresseux, mais nous les aidons à faire, de
And
les faire
so we're
sortir
willing to
par
help them,
non seulement les enseignements, les
not only
conseils, mais aussi les
giving
encouragements. Parce
recommendations
que
and suggestions, but also
l'éducation,
supporting
la
them,
santé
because
font
education
partie aussi
and health are
de notre
part
charisme.
of
Surtout
our
lorsque nous
charism.
sommes appelés auprès des plus démunis,
Namely,
nous sommes
when
auprès
we
d'eux
are
comme des
called to
médecins,
help
même pas médecins
poor
scientifiquement
people,
parlant, mais
we
médecins
are
des âmes,
not doctors,
et auprès de qui
not
nous
medical
annonçons
doctors,
aussi la
but
bonne nouvelle.
we are
Alors,
doctors
ça m'a
of
beaucoup
spirits,
attiré
and
et
we
j'ai demandé au
bring the good
responsable
news.
là
So
que
this
je
is
vais
our task.
approfondir
So
au fur et
I
à mesure qu'on
called
évolue avec
this manager,
les
and I will
formations des
try
ODD.
to
Je vais approfondir
delve
pour creuser
into the
davantage
ODD programs,
qu'est-ce qui a
so
poussé les
to
gens à créer
understand
ces réseaux
better
des
what
associations
pushed
congolaises de
such
jeunes.
people
Voilà
to
un
create
peu
that association
brièvement
of
le contact que j'ai
Congolese
eu
youth.
avec
So this
l'un des
is
membres
the
de
kind
ces
of
mouvements.
contact that I
Merci.
had with a member of this movement. Thank you.
Wow, very fascinating and creative, Jean-Paul. I like that you were kind of not limiting yourself to any network that is already explicitly monitoring SDGs, but you are kind of scanning your own landscape for meaningful networks of civil society who work on some collection of issues that are within the umbrella or within the tent of sustainable development and are maybe drawing in strong existing networks into the work of monitoring SDGs. That is excellent. And we will be very interested to hear how your conversations continue with that youth network and to see how they might become part of the SDG review process going forward. Certainly in your country, in so many countries in your region, youth are a very significant component of the population, and yet often they are not consulted at all or very rarely consulted in matters of politics, policy. And so it's a very good strategy, I think, to find places where youth are already connected in network and to find ways to draw them in to this work of monitoring and of exercising their voices as important citizens and important agents of development for their own countries and their own futures. So thank you for your creativity, and please do continue to tell us about the progress of that conversation. And if you make connection with any other networks in your country as you proceed, then please inform us about that as you go as well.
Merci.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments or experiences to share about efforts to reach out to civil society networks in your country? Okay. Do not see any more hands. Oh, I do see one now. Yes, please, Joseph Bokako.
Bonjour, merci de la parole m'accorder.
Hello, and thank you
Je
for
suis
giving me the floor.
Joseph
My name
Bokako,
is
je suis
Joseph
laïc
Bokako
évoluant, laïc clarétin évoluant donc dans la paroisse
of the
Saint-Ignace.
Clarishan
Je suis sous
congregation of the St. Ignace
la direction
parish,
du
and
Père Jean-Paul, qui vient
I'm
de
under the
prendre
direction of
parole tout à
Father
l'heure,
Jean-Paul,
qui nous a enrichi au
who
travers
has just spoken,
le partage de son expérience avec
and we were grateful
les-
for his
l'association
sharing
donc,
and
qui l'a aidé
to
à nous entretenir
being in
tout à l'heure.
contact with
En
the
fait, moi, à mon
association.
niveau, je
Well,
n'avais pas pu
at my in my
accéder au
function,
lien
I was not able
qui avait
to
été partagé, mais par
access the
contre,
link that
j'ai
was
pu
shared, but
chercher, entrer
I
en
was
contact
able
avec
to look up for
nos
information and get into
associations,
contact
notamment
with
j'avais pu prendre
this
langue avec
association,
l'association de jeunes panafricains au Congo, qui travaille
the
aussi toujours en cette
young
matière
youth
des ODD.
in Congo
Et
working
j'avais
on
essayé d'échanger
SDGs,
avec eux pour
and I
savoir comment ils
tried
étaient en
to
train de faire.
talk to them
Et
to
tout, ils
understand
m'ont fait
what they
savoir que dans
were
le
actually
cadre de
doing,
leur
and they told me
structure de
that
société civile, ils
in the
préparent, ils
framework of their
envisagent à préparer un
action within
rapport
civil
sur
society, they were
les
trying to
différents
prepare a
ODD,
report on different
notamment sur
SDGs, namely
l'égalité de
on
sexe, entre
equality,
sexes et tout.
gender equality,
Et parce qu'aujourd'hui, dans notre pays,
because
on
today
vit
in
beaucoup
our
de
country,
situations
we live
d'inégalité.
several
Et
situations
notamment,
of
je peux
inequalities.
donner un exemple
I can give you
qui est devenu en fait
a quick
viral à
example
travers
that
une vidéo
became
qui a
quite
circulé,
famous,
voir
starting
comment
from a video
une dame était en train
where a
de
woman
subir des maltraitances
who
pendant
was actually
l'accouchement.
being harassed
Alors qu'elle subissait une intervention chirurgicale après avoir connu un cas de césarienne. Et on a vu
she
un médecin en
had
train de la
to
battre
experience a
tout simplement
C-section,
parce qu'elle était en train de bouger. Et
but
cette association donc lutte contre ce
after
genre
some
d'abus
problems
à
occurring
l'encontre
during
de femmes pour
delivery
prôner donc l'égalité de
and
sexe, le
experiences some
droit
issues,
des femmes
she got
et mettre
into
en avant
contact with
donc
an
le droit
association
humain. Mais
advocating for
également
women's rights.
pour demander au gouvernement de pouvoir
And this
accompagner
was also
aussi
important to
la
ask the
population
government
en raison de
to
l'insécurité qui
accompany
bat
people
son plein.
considering the
À l'heure actuelle,
insecurity
il y
women
a
are
vraiment
experiencing.
des
And
situations
actually,
tragiques dont sont victimes
there are very
les
tragic
différents
situations
opérateurs
where
économiques
victims are
qui
different
tiennent,
economic
selon le
operators.
cas, de petits commerces et tout,
That
ils
is
sont
the
victimes
case
de
of
vols
small
à main
shops.
et très souvent ils sont à la merci de
And very
de
often,
tous ces badauds, de tous ces criminels qui ne cessent d'errer.
they are
Et
exposed
c'est ainsi qu'ils
to
m'ont fait savoir que
crimes. I
ils
was
sont
able
en train
to see
d'organiser,
that
en fait, de dresser des rapports pour pouvoir
some reports are being
solliciter
written
donc le respect de certains
in order to
ODD, parce
ask for the
qu'aujourd'hui, si le
respect
jeune
of some
s'adonne à ne
SDGs,
serait-ce que se débrouiller, c'est parce qu'il y a un problème, comme
because
le
we
père
need to
l'a dit tout
acknowledge
à l'heure, un
there
problème
is a
d'emploi.
current
Et c'est comme ça
problem
que
of
tout le monde
employment,
devient
as
quasiment
Jean-Paul has said.
entrepreneur afin de
This is
pouvoir
why
chercher à nouer les deux bouts du
we
doigt. Et si
need
ces
to
jeunes-là
empower
développent,
youth.
en développant ces genres d'initiatives, sont
And through
exposés
some important initiatives,
à des différents actes des malfrats, eh bien,
we
les
will
pays
be
risquera de
exposed
sombrer
to
davantage. Voilà en
inequalities
quelques mots. Et
and
moi,
to
je leur
different
avais
treatments.
fait comprendre que
This is
nous
my
serons
humble
aussi, nous sommes
contribution,
disposés à
but I
pouvoir
just wanted to
les
say that
accompagner
we are willing
dans
to
le cadre de
accompany
cette
them
lutte afin de pouvoir
in
mener à
this
bien
fight
au regard de tout ce que
so
nous
that
apprenons dans le cadre de cette formation afin de pouvoir avoir
we
un apport
may
considérable dans le cadre
have
de cette
an
travail. Et ils
important
m'ont dit que,
support in
notamment le
this work. And
coordonnateur
they told me that the
Makamba
coordinator,
Arondibou, il m'a
Makamba
dit
Arandibu,
qu'ils seront très ravis de
he
pouvoir
told me
collaborer
they
avec nous autres
would be
et
happy
qu'à
to
tout moment, il pourra
work with
donc
us
nous contacter. Donc
and
voilà, à
that
ce stade,
they will be in
c'était des
contact
chiffres
with us. So this
comptables
was the
jusqu'à
starting point
c'est un peu ça.
of our contact, and this is it. Thank you.
That is amazing, Joseph. That will connect so beautifully with the outreach that Jean-Paul was just describing with the Youth Pastors Network. A way to connect youth who are already attentive to the SDGs and that specific framework, and connecting them with a much larger network of youth who would share their concerns, certainly, but who are not yet connected to that part of the conversation around sustainable development. I do want to ask you, do you have available the name of the youth network with which you were communicating?
Oui, j'ai le nom.
Yes.
C'est AGPAC, Alliance de jeunes panafricains au Congo.
JCoR
Donc, c'est ça le nom
Pan-African Youth in
de
Congo.
ces réseaux de jeunes.
This is
Donc,
the name of
AGPAC,
the
Alliance
network.
de jeunes panafricains au Congo.
Excellent. Great. I want to make a note of it so we can include it in a future collection of networks. So we have the best possible list of options to present to all who will participate in this program in the future. Thank you very much for that outreach effort, Joseph. It is very exciting, and I look forward to hearing about your accompaniment of that process and reporting on, I suppose it's under goal number 5, related to gender equality. So thank you for that work.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Milan, do you want to share?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I know it's with my... Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm Milan. I am a member of the missionary congregation of the Society of the Divine Word, and I've been in Brazil for 15 years. And thinking a little bit on the sharing of Ana Helena from Espírito Santo, the issue of mining and also the devastating consequences of Brumadinho tragedy, I feel the urge also to follow up a bit on the investments that the governments and the municipalities are doing with other possible mining lake tragedies that might happen. 2 years ago, we had the formation of clergy in Archdiocese of Espírito Santo, and we had one assessor. Her name is Sonia. She's an engineer in the ambiental law, and she shared a lot of information. I hope I will be able to find them also on some of the sites. But she said that the only thing that changed after the tragedy of Brumadinho is now that the national multi-companies are obliged by the government to do the annual report. So last year we knew that in Brazil we have 25 sceneries similar to Brumadinho, mining lakes in a poorly condition, ready to burst. So the question is, what is the investment that the state and the municipalities have done from there to now? Because it's a very serious question. And it's almost like the Pontius Pilate way of dealing with human lives. Before of that, there was nothing. We didn't even know. Brumadinho tragedy could have been avoided. We have a bishop also, Vicente Pereira, who was a bishop there. He gave us a retreat last year. And also last week, he witnessed in the Vatican radio, actually they launched the platform for the church, but also from the perspective of the ethical issues and the ethical conscience on the money, preventing actually or calling the church not to use or to receive the money that comes from mining, especially those who already have blood on their hands. And when Brumadinho, it was extinguished, but when it burst, there was not even a siren there to warn the guard who was walking on the ramp. And there was a restaurant below built also, so many people were eating. So everybody, more than 220 deaths. After that, the multinational companies which do mining in Brazil, they have the obligation to do the report. And so they do the report. But from the report, what impact this report has on the local governments and investment and protection, on eventually on evacuation of people. Otherwise, we'll only pray not to happen. When it happens, it will repeat the same tragedy. So I think it's one of the ways that it's very important to explore and maybe bring it also as somehow articulated at the forum. Thank you.
That's a great thought, Milan. And of course, one powerful strategy for analysis of injustice is always this approach of following the money. And so it is always wise, if you have the passion and the energy for it, always wise to look into investment. I don't remember the origin of the idea or the quotation, but I do know it's a common phrase that is shared among those in the community at the UN to say that a budget is a moral document, which is to say, it's clear evidence of what a government truly values, as may be different from the things they say they value. So that is a very wise method of getting at the heart or the truth of the values of government and the genuine delivery, the genuine motive of government. You wanted to say something more?
Yes, what makes it more complicated in the case of Vale, which is the mining company that behind the tragedy of Brumadinho, they are owned by the national banks. So you close the circle also with the political power, independently which party it is. So it gets, when it comes back or comes down to the investment where it needs to be invested, it's so many problems. But it's one of the, maybe as you say, the tracks and the pathways to follow up. And the other also, it's a public information that since 2019, the international and national debt of the multinational companies from Brazil and from the outside is 2 trillions of reais. So it would also be interesting to see what the government does. So we have the whole scenery from basically 7 years that passed, how this money comes back and how it can be invested also in the fragilities which were done also by the same companies. So thanks.
Yeah, and that is a very suitable topic of study or focus. It would fit very well into a couple of the themes for this year's forum, I think. I'm thinking especially of goal number 6, related to water and sanitation, because, of course, water is one of the first things to be devastated in most mining accidents. And, of course, all of the human health effects that follow from the damage of water. And then the second that might be very well, actually, 3. The second that might be well fitting or well suited is goal number 9, related to infrastructure, specifically the part about infrastructure, because certainly mining involves significant infrastructure, and you are speaking about investment in safeguarding and making sure that that infrastructure is kind of up to code and safe and well maintained. And then the third goal, where it might be a good fit, would be sustainable cities, because as you and Ana Elena both described, it was a total destruction of life in many aspects for whole towns and cities when they are faced with a disaster resulting from a mining project. So it's a very good area of focus, I think, for this year's forum. And I don't know if this is the network you were thinking about. You spoke about kind of an effort to inform churches about kind of examining their own finances, that to see if they may be benefiting in some way or supporting mining in some way without realizing. But I do want to name, either for you or for others here who are interested in this topic, I hope you are aware of a network called the Church and Mining Network, which is very active across Latin America, that is very concerned with these specific issues as a matter of justice and motivated by faith. I think it's mostly operates in Spanish, but often I think they will have materials and meetings in other languages as well. Maybe everyone is already aware of that, but I wanted to name it in case it is new information for anyone here. And if I can, I will find their website and I will put it into the chat box before we finish our session today.
Thank you.
Okay. Do not see other hands at the moment, so we will move on to our next question for all of you. And this one relates to the second task that was asked of all of you, which was to make an attempt to join the team of members of civil society from your country who will craft together the official response of civil society that will be delivered during the forum immediately following the presentation that is made by your government. So this is kind of the most official and most direct method for response to your government in the context of the forum itself. And so we encourage all of you whose governments are presenting a report this year, we encouraged each of you to join that civil society team for your country so that you could have a voice in that brief response or question that will be presented by civil society during the forum. And so there was a form that we encouraged you all to complete and submit. It looked like this. And we had at the time, the deadline that they put on the form itself was March 1st. And I had a suspicion that they would keep it open for much longer than that. And it seems that they have. So if anyone has not already completed that form, it is still available. And we very, very strongly encourage anyone who can to complete that form because it really is a meaningful and powerful opportunity for you to bring your voice and your perspective into the official process of the forum itself. So I'm going to get the link for that form and put it into the chat box right now, in case anyone wants to open it and have it ready. Okay, so the link is in the chat box now. You can open it, and then when we are finished with our session today, you can go directly there to complete it. And I know there were a couple of questions on that form that we took some time explaining, the best way to answer them because some of them may have been somewhat confusing to those who are not regularly participating in UN conferences. So I do want to take this opportunity to check in with all of you about this process and to ask first if anyone has already submitted the form and if you have received any response from the organizers of the team, if there have been any activities or meetings. And then also, if you have any questions, if you are having any difficulty in completing the form or you are not sure how to respond to a particular question, I would love to provide some guidance and some clarity for you while we are together. So, does anyone have any updates or questions in relation to this form to join the BNR team for your country? Yes, Joseph, go ahead.
Merci encore une fois pour
Thank you
l'octroi de
once
la parole.
again for giving me the floor.
Nous avons bel et bien rempli
We
le
have
formulaire
actually
au
filled
travers
in
le lien qui nous avait été envoyé par vous,
this
de
questionnaire
votre équipe,
thanks to the
et nous
link
vous en
you
remercions.
sent last
Mais
time. So
cependant,
thank you
il
very
se
much
pose
for
un
this
problème. Je ne sais
sharing.
pas si c'est à mon
But
niveau,
I
mais il n'y a
have a
pas eu
problem.
une
I do
réaction
not know if
quelconque.
it is
Juste
just
réfléchir
my
dessus.
issue,
Je
but
crois
I
que nous
had
nous
no
demandons, nous nous
reaction,
posons
no
la question de
reply
savoir si
up to date. So
notre formulaire en fait, a été par le
we
destinataire.
We had no answer
nous vous posons
from
la question, qu'est-ce que
there.
vous pouvez nous
So my
conseiller
question is, what is
là-dessus?
your
Donc,
suggestion
personnellement,
on that?
c'est rempli depuis
I
avant même
have
l'échéance,
filled it
mais
in even
jusqu'au jour
before the
d'aujourd'hui, nous n'avons
deadline,
reçu
but
aucune
so
réaction.
far
Voilà,
we
c'était la
have
petite question
received
ou
no reaction
préoccupation
at all. So
que
this
nous avions
is,
à l'exprimer.
we are
Merci.
worried about it. So what do you suggest? Thank you.
Great. Well, first of all, congratulations on completing the important first step. That is great. I'm very happy to hear that you were able to complete and submit the form. And it is not a surprise, and I think not a cause for worry that you have not yet received a response. The process, the timeline of the process is a bit different from year to year. So we're never able to guarantee exactly, when the form will close and when the teams will summon the members to meet and when the statement will be completed. Each team kind of operates by its own timeline, and it depends mostly on the availability of the busy organizers. And so it's not a surprise that you have not heard anything yet. I would not assume that means that something has gone wrong. Most likely, the organizers are still reaching out, trying to recruit more participants, which is why the form is still open, even though it's nearly a month after the original deadline. So I suspect they are still seeking more members and still preparing to have their first meeting. So you hopefully will hear from them in the next couple of weeks. I wish that I could give you a clear schedule, but we never know from one year to the next and one team to the next what the schedule will be. But do keep a close eye on the mailbox for the email address that you provided in the form, as I'm sure essentially all the communication of those teams will happen via email. So just keep watching for a message in that email box, and I hope something will come in the next couple of weeks. But cannot guarantee. But the good news is I would not worry about it yet. It's still somewhat early in the process, and truly the statements only need to be finalized just before the forum itself. So we still have a few months before the forum in July for the team to come together and to craft the statement. So don't worry yet. You're probably right on track, right where you should be.
Merci beaucoup. Merci en tout cas.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you.
Anyone else have an experience to share or a question to ask about joining the VNR team for your country? Yes, Helga, please.
Yes, Helga from Norway, and Ferdinand. We have the same experience as Joseph has. So we have filled in the form before March the 1st, but we haven't heard anything yet. So we hope that we get some response soon. But now Easter is coming and Norway is closing down. So we'll see. But thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, Helga and Ferdinand. He's still there. I'm very happy to know that you were able to complete the form without problem. And I do hope that you will receive a response in the next week or two. But just keep watching, and I I think it will be coming.
Thank you, Teresa. We'll do that.
Any other experiences or questions about the form? It is a bit long. I'm sorry for that.
Just
Yes, Milan.
one question. In terms of Vivat, we have a representation at UN, but will the same time be given for each country for the same ONG organization? Because it says like 15 minutes, but if the same organization will do report for Brazil, for different parts of the world, I mean, how that time will be chopped, I don't know.
I understand your question. So the 10 to 15 minutes is for the presentations of the governments themselves. And the distinction in most years is, I think it's 15 minutes if a government is reporting for the first time, meaning if they are reporting for the first time since 2015, when the SDGs were adopted. And then if it is their second, third, fourth time reporting, then they would receive only 10 minutes for their report. Now, I believe it is the case that this year there are no countries reporting for the first time. I think they have all reported in the past. So I think they will all have this reduced amount of time. But other than that, everyone is the same. Every country receives the same amount of time. Now, with regard to the statements from civil society, maybe it is no surprise because the United Nations is an institution primarily of governments coming together, that as civil society, we have significantly less time to speak. And not, 10 minutes is not a large amount of time to begin with. As civil society, we receive 2 minutes to respond. And so in that time, one representative from civil society will share the statement, or in some cases, it's a part statement, part question that they will present on behalf of all of civil society from the country. So it is a difficult task to choose an area of focus and to choose a message that can be shared in such a short period of time. And of course, if we could, we would love to have 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour for each country. And unfortunately, the rules of the forum do not allow us that luxury. So we try to be a part of these teams so that at least we can have our voices in the process, that maybe we can get one insight or one idea into this short 2-minute statement. But I will say one thing I have always found amazing in several years of participating in this process is that so few people, so few members of civil society are aware of this process, that very many times members of our JCoR delegation have been the majority of a VNR team, because civil society is not aware of this channel for contribution. So while it may seem impossible, you may be envisioning that you're going to be, in this battle with hundreds or thousands of people trying to get an idea in this statement. And in reality, the number of people participating is often quite small. And so your contribution can be quite significant. So that's why we so strongly encourage each one of you to try to participate in these teams to the greatest extent possible for you, because it really is a powerful way to have a voice in a space that is not easy to gain access to.
Right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other experiences to share or questions to ask? Okay. Don't see any requests. So the next question to put to all of you is specifically for those few delegates in our group who are joining us from the Asia Pacific region. And I'm not sure who might be with us today, if anyone is. But is there anyone here from the Asia Pacific region who was able to engage or follow the regional forum for sustainable development for the Asia Pacific region? And if so, is there anything that you would like to share from that forum? Oh, okay, I don't see any hands. So before we move on from there, I just want to remind everyone that while the Asia Pacific Forum has already concluded, the recordings of the whole forum are available on the YouTube channel for that region's Economic and Social Commission. So the link to those recordings is in our slides, which I will share after our session today.
Oui. Déjà.
And for the rest of the group, your regional forum on sustainable development is still coming. So here is a reminder of the dates for all of the upcoming regional fora. For those in Latin America and the Caribbean, your forum will be the 13th to the 16th of April. Then for those in Europe and North America, your forum will be the 21st to 22nd of April. For those in the Arab region or Western Asia, your forum will overlap with the one for Europe and North America. It will be the 21st to the 23rd of April. And then finally, the forum for Africa will be the 28th to the 30th of April. So it is a very busy month, April, for all of the regional activity that helps to prepare for the global forum in July. And again, each of these usually has some component that you are able to follow virtually from wherever you may be. And for some of them, you can view almost all of the meeting. For some, the opportunities are more limited. But I have links on this slide, which I will share with you, that will take you directly to the various websites, or in some cases, social media accounts, where you can follow either live stream or recordings, or at least some kind of reporting on the proceedings of these fora. And when we come together for our next call in May, we'll be invited to share any reflections that you may have from these fora. So we do encourage you to try to view at least one session, whether it's one panel discussion or one, open debate, whatever it may be, to just view some portion of the forum for your region, just to get a little of the flavor or the taste of the focus of the conversation, the priorities that are emerging, and then to kind of reflect as you listen. And here are a few questions that I find helpful when reflecting in these kind of fora. As you listen to what is being shared, to just continuously ask yourself, where is my experience aligning or agreeing with the reports and the perspectives that are being shared? And then, on the other hand, where does my own experience conflict with the reports and perspectives that are being shared? And then finally, a very important question that we must always be asking ourselves is, what is missing? What is not being said? What concern or what group of people is being ignored or neglected in this conversation? And those three questions are very helpful, and many reflections that we will do as part of this process, whether listening to a forum or analyzing a report on sustainable development, we can return to these same questions again and again to help us organize our thoughts and to present our own perspectives and insights in conversation with those that are being shared by others from civil society or from our government. Does anyone have any questions about regional attending or following a regional forum for your own region? Yes, Anne, please go ahead.
I was just wondering, for the North American one, which is of course combined with Europe, but since the US chooses not to participate and Canada and Mexico are not on the list, is that going to be primarily focused on Europe at this point? Or I know that some of the cities in the United States do voluntary national reviews, but that's not the same as a country doing it.
Great question. Thank you, Anne. So the way that the regional fora are organized is a bit different from the global level forum in July, in that any number of countries can participate in any given year. So it's not limited to the 35 to 40 governments that will be reporting in July. That being said, of course, participation is voluntary in the same way. So it would surprise me very much if we saw the federal government of the US participating in this regional forum. But as you pointed out, there may well be participants from more state governments or local level governments who may be engaging with the process. And that's perhaps one of the advantages of having these regional fora as part of the journey toward the global forum, is they are a space in which those who are from the same region, who may naturally have more concerns in common due to experiences they share, it creates, more space and more opportunity for them to relate to one another, and to compare experiences and make plans building toward the global forum. But it also helps to capture more of the global picture than we will really see in the global level forum, because all countries can be involved in a regional forum every year if they wish to do so. They don't have to do it, just once every 3 or 4 years, as many do in the global level. So I hope that clarifies that, and I would be very pleased to see any level of government from the U.S. participating in these regional fora. And of course, we always support that from any country on the basis of our principle of subsidiarity and recognizing that there's great value in citizens and governments at every level taking on challenges that may be global in nature, but are experienced in individual lives and at the local level. And it really highlights that each of us has something to share, and that when we come together, it really helps us to recognize the patterns in our experiences from town to town, or state or province to province, or country to country. And then when we come together in July, we can really notice the patterns even from region to region. And it's quite remarkable when you see that the challenges have a pattern. The happy side of that equation is that we can also find that our solutions can have a pattern. And we can find that we are in much greater company than we realized in realizing those solutions. So it can be quite the hopeful exercise as well, even though we may be discussing some of the most challenging aspects of life in our own country.
Thank you, that's really helpful. I'll check to see if I can find out. It wouldn't surprise me at all to know that California was participating. They're as large as many countries are, so I'll see if I can find that out.
Great. Yeah, please let us know. I hope that there is some representation there. Anyone else have any questions or comments in relation to participation in the regional forum on sustainable development for your region? Okay. Great. And once again, I will be sharing those slides, so you will have all the links to just go directly to the pages you need to find that content and listen to some part of the forum for your region. And if you're extremely enthusiastic and you happen to have the blessing of much free time and you want to view an entire forum, that is also welcome and encouraged. But we understand that most people do not have an abundance of free time. You are all squeezing this program in somewhere on the edges of very full lives and schedules. So if you can find, even 1 hour to view some piece of a forum from your region, that will be wonderful. And that will be of value as we continue in our process. Okay, so the next topic, now we are coming to one of the pieces where I will offer you a little bit of input on a new source of information that you can pursue in addition to your regional forum on sustainable development, which is that you can each look into the progress reports on sustainable development that have been created and published by civil society networks from your country in the past, which can enable you to do an interesting comparative study of perhaps how things have changed over time. So I have collected here all the reports that I could find from each of your countries that offer some kind of reporting on progress toward achieving the SDGs. So I've put hyperlinks to each of those reports here in the slides, so you can go directly to those reports. And as you can see, for many countries, there are at least 2 reports here. For some countries, there may be even 3 or 4 different reports. And of course, there is no expectation that you would read 3 or 4 different reports from the past, but I've put them all here so that you have a full menu of options, and they are organized according to the year that they were published, which maybe will help you to decide, if you would like to get maybe the earliest and the latest and compare some component of the two. You can get a sense of how the narrative may have changed over time, or perhaps how the focus has changed over time. And the other thing that I want to maybe comfort you about as I share all of these links is that many of these reports, well, some of them are quite short, some of them are quite lengthy, and you, especially if the report is very long, we would not have any expectation that you are reading through a report of hundreds of pages, but they are typically organized according to some kind of theme or by SDGs. And so you could find, the subject that is of greatest interest to you, and then just kind of go directly to that section of the report. And then just look at as much as you have the time and the appetite to read. It's a nice way to enhance your perspective on the ways that civil society can analyze and report on SDG progress. It offers kind of an example for you of how others have engaged in this process and this conversation in the past. And also perhaps it will provide some new insights about a subject of interest to you, or perhaps it will be an affirmation of many of the experiences and perspectives that you have yourself. But in any case, it's meant to be a supplement to the work that we will do a little bit later in our process, which will be to analyze the written report that will be published by each of your governments. And so we will take time to reflect on those reports together. And that will be a significant component of the reflections that will be shared when we have these series of webinars that we call the JCoR SDG Lab in July. So anyway, consider this opportunity kind of a first exercise to get some perspective from your fellow members of civil society about how to enter the conversation and how to present your perspective on SDG progress. And so I have a couple of slides to show you about where you can find some of these. And specifically, this database will show you all of the VNR statements that were presented by the VNR teams during past fora. So earlier when we were talking about filling out that form to join the VNR team for your country and to have input into that 2-minute statement that will follow the report from your government during the forum. So this is a database of those 2-minute statements. And that might also provide a very quick way to get a sense of the kinds of comments and questions that have been presented by civil society during the forum in past years. And so every country that has reported in the past, you can find at least one statement there from civil society. So the link to this webpage is on this slide. And once you arrive at that page, you simply need to type in the name of your country in English because the database exists only in English, unfortunately. The statements are not all in English, but the organization of the database page is in English. So you'll type the name of your country in English here in this box, and then what will appear immediately below, it will filter to show only the statements in relation to that country. And then you can just click on the read button, which will appear beside the name of the country. And then you can view all of the past 2-minute statements from civil society that responded to your country's government. And once again, as you look at the written reports from civil society or the quick statements, the 2-minute statements, you can return again to these questions about how what you are reading aligns with your experience, how it conflicts with your experience, and again, what might be absent, what is missing, what are the gaps in what you are reading. Are there any questions about exploration of those past reports or statements from civil society? Yes, Helga and Ferdinand.
I only wanted to say I think this is very good to have. So thanks a lot, and it's a good preparation to go into this work. So I'm really excited to explore these web pages. Thanks, Teresa.
Great. Well, thank you for your enthusiasm. And I will say, if nothing else, if the idea of a whole report is intimidating and does not fit into your life, I will encourage you to at least look for the 2-minute statement from a past year from civil society, because it only took 2 minutes to read in the room, so it should only take you about 2 minutes to read. So if you're looking for one very fast, efficient way to see how civil society has spoken in this forum before, that would be a very fast way to at least get that insight. So I very much encourage everyone to at least look for the 2-minute statement in that database from members of civil society in your country. And if you have time to look into those longer reports, some of which are only like a page or two themselves, then that is also great. Everything has the capacity to kind of enhance your insight and your experience, but we will each do whatever we can manage with the time and energy that we each have available. Okay. And we will move along to our last little bit of input for today, which is something that I have mentioned in previous sessions, but we will continue kind of expanding our detail as we discuss it, which is beginning to look ahead to how we will participate in the JCoR SDG Lab, which will be in the final week of July. So as I mentioned earlier, the JCoR SDG Lab is essentially a kind of final project, or what some people might call a capstone project, to kind of sum up your experience and what you have learned and what you have studied, what you have contributed to this process of engagement with the high-level political forum. And so the way that we organize this lab is that it consists of 5 different webinars, and those are held across 5 days within that same week. And each day is dedicated to one of the SDGs that is a priority or a theme for this year's forum. So as a reminder, those priority SDGs for this year are goal number 6 on water and sanitation, goal number 7 on affordable, reliable, sustainable, modern energy, goal number 9 on resilient infrastructure, inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and innovation. So that goal we shorten to the three I's in English: infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation. Goal number 11, inclusive, safe, resilient, sustainable cities and human settlements. And goal number 17, which is partnerships of all kinds that support the achievement of the SDGs. And so each of you is invited to speak during at least one of these webinars. And in that time, the amount of time that will be allotted to each person to speak will depend on exactly how many people decide they want to speak in each of those sessions. So we will determine that as we get closer to the lab itself. But I do want to invite you all to begin thinking now about which of these goals you feel most interested in, which ones perhaps align most closely or relate most closely to your own ministry, or which ones are the most significant in terms of your own life experience in your country. Because when we come together in May, we will start to ask people to state, what their preferences are in terms of first choice, second choice, which session you would like to speak in. And we will do our best to give everyone an opportunity to speak in the session of their first choice. But sometimes there is an overwhelming number of participants who want to speak in the same session. And so there are sometimes situations where we might ask someone to speak in the second choice session. But that being said, we all know that all of these goals are very interconnected. And so, for example, if you are very interested in speaking on the subject of something related to water and sanitation, but that session was very full, you could, of course, if you ended up speaking in the session dedicated to sustainable cities, you would be very welcome to speak about water and sanitation as well. We understand that many of our realities and our projects do not live cleanly within just one sustainable development goal. There is all kinds of mixing and interconnection among all of these, and we have no problem with presenting them in that full complexity. And in fact, illustrating the ways that all aspects of sustainable development are interconnected and interdependent. So the call at this time for all of you in preparing for this lab is really just to try to do some serious thinking. Maybe you already know in your gut which your preferences are, but if you want to reflect on it a bit more, please do some thinking about which of these goals would be your preferences to speak about during the SDG Lab. And when we come together again in May, we will be asking people to declare their preferences so that we can kind of organize the schedule of speakers, and we can let everyone know how much time each person will have to speak. And then you will all have plenty of time to prepare before that final week in July. And one other thing, if you already have a clear sense of which goal you'd like to speak about, then you might also proceed to thinking about examples of specific projects or ministries that you know that relate to that goal, that are part of your work or the work of your congregation in your country. And I will definitely in future sessions offer more detailed guidance about kind of how you might structure your comments on whichever goal you are speaking. So I won't worry about communicating all of that detail now. But does anyone have any questions about the basic structure of the SDG Lab or about the question of reflecting on which session you would like to be part of? Okay, great. And we will definitely discuss the overall design and the little details of that program as we get closer to it. So if you have questions about, the specifics of making a presentation and what it should include and what it should not include, we will definitely discuss all of that during a future session. But for now, just be thinking about which one or two sessions you would be most interested in contributing to. Okay, so then the only thing left to do today is a quick review of the next steps for all of us between now and our next call, which will be on the 15th of May. So for those who have not already made an attempt to contact a civil society network that is monitoring SDGs in your country, you are encouraged to make that attempt and continue efforts to reach out. For those who have already made contact, please keep up the communication. And I'm very excited to learn about how that process and that relationship will unfold over the next few months. For anyone who has not already done so, please, please, please complete the form to join the VNR team for your country, which is again that team that will craft the 2-minute statement to follow your government's presentation during the forum. And I will share that link again. It will be in the slides multiple times from today. It's in the chat box now. So please, if you have any challenges with completing it, be in touch with me. I will be happy to help you complete that task. And then also start thinking and gathering ideas about which session of the SDG Lab you would like to be a speaker and a contributor in. And for those, well, I guess for all regions, look into following some segment, some session of your regional forum on sustainable development. Even if it's just a half hour, an hour, something. And here again are all the links you need to access those fora. And then in preparation for our next global call, which is again on the 15th of May, for most people, the call will be the same time as the session for today. But for those in Europe, I know your clocks will be changing in the next couple of days. So just remember that for you in Europe, the time of this call will change. So when we gather again in May, it will be 1 hour later for you than today. For the rest of us, it will stay the same as today. And in preparation for that call, I will be sending you a couple of emails. I will share all of the slides from today's session. I will also share again this link to register for our next global call. And I know I am overdue with this, but I am still planning to gather you in regional groups for a sort of meeting and greeting, a session just to introduce ourselves to others in our same region in a less formal way. So I will be sending around emails to try to find a good date and time for each region to come together as a small group and just introduce ourselves to one another, and get to learn a little bit more about one another on a personal level. So if there are any questions or problems or challenges that arise between now and the 15th of May, please be in touch with me. You can reach me by responding to the emails that I am sending you, or in the context of our WhatsApp group. And I think I have now added everyone who has an active WhatsApp number to that group, or I have sent an invitation if I was not able to add you directly. So if you are on WhatsApp, but you have not been added and have not received an invitation, please do communicate with me and I will continue to try to resolve that issue, as it is a helpful way for us to share reminders and important links as we continue in this journey together. Are there any final questions or concerns that anybody wants to share in our final minutes together?
Teresa, this VNR, you're asking us to fill that. Do we need to fill it if we already have one of our NGOs at the UN?
Yes. So the form to join the VNR team is specific to you as an individual. It is your way of personally joining a small group of individuals, some of whom will come from organizations that have UN accreditation, some of whom may be coming from organizations that have no UN accreditation, but a small group of individuals who will work together to craft this 2-minute statement. So no matter what congregation or organization you are connected to, if you want to participate personally in the VNR team for your country, then you will need to complete this form for yourself. Does that clarify it, Anthony?
Yes, thank you.
Great. And just in case anyone joined us later in the call, I am going to share that link again in the chat box. So this is the form to join the VNR team for your country. And that, if there's one more task you are able to complete for this JCoR program today, I would ask you to make this the task that you do today, as we do not know for how many more days that form will still be open and accepting responses. And we really do not want you to miss the opportunity to be a member of that team for your country. It really is a unique and valuable approach to contribution to this forum as a whole. Any other questions, comments? Okay. Well, thank you all very much for offering your valuable time to continuing in this process. And thank you for all the work and efforts that you have made in the last month and a half, some of which you shared with us today. And I appreciate all of your enthusiasm and passion that you are continuing to bring to your participation and your engagement in analyzing progress toward the SDGs and eventually communicating some of the ways that you and your congregation are contributing to the SDGs. And I look forward to seeing you again on the 15th of May and hopefully in regional calls between now and then. And if you need me or have any questions in the meantime, then please do be in touch by email or WhatsApp. We are here to accompany you all the way through the process. And we do want to support you in making the strongest contribution that you can, because we know you all have extremely valuable experience and insight to share. So thank you once again. Thank you to Anna, Jessica, and Vivian, our wonderful team of interpreters. And I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a great remainder of your day or your night.
Merci, merci. Merci beaucoup, merci. Merci beaucoup, merci.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
Merci,
Merci
merci beaucoup,
beaucoup.
Teresa, merci.
Merci. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, merci, Conrad, Joseph.
Oui, merci, Père Juan,
Merci,
merci
thank
pour
you
cette
so much.
opportunité. Merci beaucoup.
Gracias.
Ciao.
Merci.
Jean Paul, Gilbert.
Thank you.